Good morning. Thank you, Joe, for that kind introduction. It's wonderful to be here. And let me also give a special. You know who I am. If you don't, you'll figure it out. But let me start by giving a warm welcome to the representatives of the Diplomatic Corps who are here in the audience. Thank you. We have a number of ambassadors who've graced us with their presence, so it's wonderful to have them here. Let me also welcome you on behalf of the Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs and to thank you for your participation. This is a conference that's been a long time in the making. We've been thinking about having it for a long time, and we're delighted that a number of other people have chosen to come along. Let me also extend a special welcome to our online audience. We have people tuning in from all around the world, and I look forward to getting questions and comments from those folks as well. And finally, I'd like to thank our co-host, the Foreign Service Institute, Joe's office in particular, and the Office of Global Food Security, because all of them have been very active in putting together this conference. What today's discussion is about is basically three items. Number one, defining the problem of post-harvest losses. Secondly, try to identify some of the causes. And lastly, finding ways to work together in order to arrive at some solutions. I'd like to cover each of these areas briefly, but I'd like to stress something that will become obvious, I hope, by the end of my talk, and that is that the real experts in the room are yourselves. And that together, it's our hope that together we can actually have a conversation, and at the end of the conference we will be we can start working towards a sustainable solution to a global problem. Let's start with defining the problem. You've heard some of the numbers before. A number of you have heard them, that by the year 2050, the world's population is expected to reach 9 billion people. And in looking at this challenge of how to feed 9 billion people, the FAO has estimated that global demand for food will increase by about 60%. By the year 2050. And food security initiatives often focus on raising productivity through higher crops, yield, crop intensification, expanded acreage. And indeed, there's been a number of advances in genetics and plant breeding that have done much to improve crop efficiency and production, and will in fact help us to meet the food production challenge. But we also have limited resources. We have limited water, limited energy, limited land, and so one of the surest and arguably the most affordable way to feed these 9 billion people is to ensure that the food that's already produced is not lost or wasted between the farm and the table. And according to the FAO, roughly one-third of the food produced in the world goes to waste. That's about 1.3 billion tons every year. And there are reports, and as I've traveled around the world, I've spoken to officials in many countries who tell me that that number may in fact be higher than one-third. In many developing countries, waste takes place just after the crop harvest. That's between the field and the market. In sub-Saharan Africa, we have about $4 billion worth of grain that's lost every year. And this is in fact more than the total amount of food aid that goes to Africa and that's been sent to Africa over the last decades. We know also that these $4 billion worth of grain could feed as much as 48 million people. Digging down to these numbers reveals further complications. Food is lost along every step of the food production chain, from harvest to handling, to storage and processing, to packing and transportation. And these numbers are staggering. Let's put them in perspective. A maize smallholder farmer in Southeast Asia may lose as much as 30% of his crop each year to mold, rodents, and insects due to lack of dry storage equipment. A vegetable farmer in India may lose the same percentage of her crop due to deficiencies in cold storage infrastructure, such as facilities to sort out the food and store it and keep it fresh. A rice farmer in Vietnam may lose grain at multiple steps between harvest and market. That person may lose a bit at harvest, a bit more at storage, and even more during transportation. In fact, the rice farmer may be looking as much as losses of 10 to 37% by the time that the grain loses the gets to the marketplace. That amount of grain, for many of the world's smallholder farmers, has an immediate impact on their ability to feed and clothe their family, not to mention the ability to invest in the technologies that are going to keep that food from being lost the next season. Despite the numbers, however, that I've just told you about, 10%, 37%, 1.3 billion tons of food wasted, we really don't have great and accurate figures on the numbers of post-harvest loss. But we do know which questions to ask. In order to address the problem, the first thing we need to do is to understand it, and that's part of what we're hoping to do today. How can we improve information collection? How can we introduce new technologies so that post-harvest losses do not happen in the developing world? How do we develop best practices for smallholder farmers that are effective and sustainable? Let's spend a couple of minutes on the causes. We don't have a complete picture on the extent of post-harvest losses, but we can pinpoint some of the causes of these losses, which range from poor infrastructure to lack of financing. You have farmers in developing countries that often don't have a fast and dependable way to get food to the consumer. You have inefficient transportation due to lack of roads or poor quality transport vehicles that pose challenges to moving fruit, vegetables, and other perishable food from farm to market. In most of the world, in fact, refrigerated vehicles simply aren't available or are not practical. You have produce that I've seen moved in open, unrefrigerated trucks, leading to food loss, infestation, and contamination well before the food has reached its destination. Access to processing and storage equipment is also lacking. We have processing equipment that can dry high-protein beans or turn soybeans into soy milk, and that will greatly extend the life of a product as well as increase its value. But that product, that infrastructure is not always available, or it's not even affordable to smallholder farmers. On the financing side, and underlying some of the challenges that I've already described, is simply just lack of access to credit. Many of the technologies that are needed to address post-harvest loss are not expensive, but in fact they do require financing. They do require credit. If farmers are not able to invest in adequate drying or storage equipment, their ability to reduce post-harvest losses will be limited. And it's a vicious cycle. The value of those losses will prevent farmers from saving enough capital to invest in adequate storage equipment, and again, that's something that will continue unless we do something about it. So those are some of the causes. The question now is, how do we work towards a solution? And again, that's part of why we're here this morning. Despite the enormous challenges that post-harvest losses present, governments, the private sector, and civil society are all cooperating to work towards a solution. On the government side, we here in Washington are taking a comprehensive approach to help countries solve some of the problems that I've described through development and through commercial initiatives. We start with Feed the Future, which is the U.S. government's flagship initiative to reduce global hunger and poverty. By promoting collaboration at the U.S. domestic and international levels, and by focusing on smallholder farmers, particularly on women, we're engaging also with the private sector and with civil society in a meaningful way and trying to advance big ideas through research and innovation. Through all of those means, Feed the Future supports partner countries in developing their agriculture sectors to spur broad-based economic growth and improve nutrition. And we've got a number of projects. One that I'm very proud of is in Rwanda, where post-harvest losses for beans and maize are estimated to be as high as 30%. And Feed the Future, along with public and private sector partners, has helped to establish a 3,000 megaton storage facility that will benefit 10,000 smallholder farmers in Rwanda. Feed the Future has also invested in training and support programs that encourage farmers to adopt best practices for post-harvest handling and storage. This type of human and institutional capacity development is particularly important because it helps to ensure that our efforts will be sustainable in the long term. In the private sector arena, innovators and entrepreneurs throughout the world are developing new technologies to reduce post-harvest losses. In India, where we have 18%, up to 18% of all produce lost to spoilage each year due to inadequate cold chain storage systems, former Secretary Clinton awarded a first grant of a joint science and technology endowment fund to a U.S. and Indian partnership to commercialize solar-powered refrigerated storage vehicles. Companies such as GrainPro, and you'll hear from them this morning, and you're already seeing their props here, are providing equipment to farmers, co-ops, and small businesses, substantially reducing post-harvest losses and increasing farmer incomes. We have multinational corporations that have also made great strides in addressing food security through the establishment of a number of systemic approaches. One of them is the Archer Daniels Midland Institute for the Prevention of Post-Harvest Loss, and another one is an investment by Land O'Lakes in partnership with USAID to help dairy cooperatives in Uganda to become more competitive through vertical integration. But solving the challenge of post-harvest loss requires investment, and it requires scaling up of technologies as well as a complex understanding of food production systems. And this is where American businesses excel, and this is one of the reasons why my bureau is involved. We feel that this is a great opportunity to both make a profit and do some good. American businesses excel at identifying problems and finding affordable and sustainable solutions. Responsible business practices have already contributed to food security by improving consumer access to safe, nutritious, and affordable food. Again, this is an instance where doing well by doing good may hold the key to feeding our growing population in the decades to come. And of course, we also need the support of civil society. Civil society has a significant role to play in this area. In September of last year, on the margins of the UN General Assembly, Secretary Clinton announced a $1 billion pledge of private, non-governmental funds from Interaction, which is an alliance of U.S.-based civil society organizations, for investment in food security over the next 3 years. A number of representatives of civil society that are making significant contributions to improve food security and nutrition are in the audience today, and again, we look forward to having a conversation and working together to deal with these issues. So let me conclude and start from at the beginning. If there's one thing that we've learned after decades of work, if there's anything that we've learned in the last couple of years when I've been in this office and trying to work on the issue of post-harvest losses, is that in fact there is no silver bullet solution. We all have a part in tackling the blight of lost and wasted food and breaking the cycle of hunger. Public-private partnerships that include NGOs and businesses, government initiatives, and international organizations are already working to improve access to safe, nutritious, and affordable food. But we've got to do more. We've got to do more. We simply cannot continue to squander 1.3 billion tons of food a year when hundreds of millions of people around the world are not getting enough to eat. So we're all in this together. We've invited representatives of not just countries, but civil society, businesses, as well as U.S. government. Let's see if we can take advantage of this morning to bring together some of these shared interests and shared goals and see if we can come up with some ways to move forward on these. Our hope is that today will just be the beginning, and that today will be an opportunity for you to share ideas and to make lasting connections. So again, thank you and welcome to the State Department, and we look forward to a wonderful conference.